Hello everyone, hope you're having a beautiful day. Today, we step into a turning point, a daughter's impossible choice, a love tested under rain and moonlight, and a quiet knock that says what words cannot. You'll see how a single decision ripples through family, pride, and the small routines that keep a heart steady, washing pumpkins, simmering winter tea, and daring to draw gentle boundaries. If this kind of cinematic storytelling moves you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. Me or him. The house is small, but the words make it feel even smaller. Rain glosses the window like a second skin. Tu Tieu's mother stands by the table, back straight, umbrella dripping onto the floorboards in slow, accusing taps. The air tastes like metal and ginger. A pot on the stove shivers once, then is quiet. Tu Tieu doesn't sit. She won't pretend this is ordinary. "Ma," she begins, and even that sounds like it might break. "Uri isn't... He is exactly what he's shown," her mother cuts in, eyes cold and clean as glass. His mother stormed this door and shouted as if we were street people. Why? Because he refuses to return to the company. A son who won't go home? A man who won't listen? Tell me what kind of husband that is. A man who won't sell his soul, Tu Tieu says, surprising herself with the steadiness of it. Her hands tremble anyway. She hides them in her sleeves. Uri turned away from pressure, not family. You're repeating him. The older woman sets the umbrella upright with a click that echoes like a gavel. You doubt Lynn, who stood beside us, but you defend a boy who can't even control his own mother. I asked Uri to look into it, Tu Tieu says, each word measured, careful, like stepping stones across a river. If Lynn is innocent, I'll apologize. There is no if, and there is no Uri in our family business. Her mother's voice drops low, dangerous. He doesn't advise us. He doesn't step into our niche. He keeps his distance. Steam ghosts the edge of the kettle and dissolves. The blue paint along the window frame flakes in a tiny curl, and Tu Tieu stares at it for a beat, because it's safer than her mother's face. He's helped me, Tu Tieu says finally, more than once. I don't want his help. The words land one by one, heavy, final. I want my daughter. For a long moment, the house is only breathing and raining. The memory of another kitchen, their old one, brighter, louder flickers through Tu Tieu. Her mother laughing as she braided her hair. The warm ache of rice bowls knocked together by accident. How do you pick a life without picking against a life? Me? Her mother says again, quieter now, and somehow that hurts more. Or him. The room presses in. Outside, a rooster complains in the rain like it knows it can't win. In Tu Tieu's chest, something tightens until it can't anymore. I choose Uri, she says, barely above a whisper, then again, stronger. I choose Uri and the farm. Her mother does not flinch. Something gentler older goes guarded in her eyes, but her voice stays iron. Lynn will collect me. Ma? No. The phone is already in her hand. You have chosen. When Lynn appears, hair damp, jaw clenched, gaze politely averted, she says nothing to Tu Tieu. She folds an arm under the older woman's elbow with reverence, and together they step into the rain. The door closes. The latch kisses the strike plate. The silence they leave is not empty. It is full of everything that cannot be said without breaking it beyond repair. Tu Tieu stands very still. The hollow in her chest isn't hollow at all. It's crowded. Her mother's eyes, Uri's voice, the years between them braided and unbraided in an instant. She lowers herself to the floor, palms flat, forehead bowed. The wood is cool and honest. She breathes until the tightness loosens enough to move. Light drifts from iron to thin silver. She shoulders a woven basket and steps outside. The fields remember how to be green without permission. The rice tips bow and lift, bow and lift, as if they're practicing forgiveness. Her boots find the worn path by muscle memory alone. The white dog follows, tail low, ears back, making the choice to be near even when no one calls. At the pumpkin rows, the leaves are lacquered with rain, beads gathering, falling, gathering again. The first green globe she lifts has the weight of a small, solid truth, indifferent to anyone's opinion. She slides it into the basket. The thump is startlingly loud. Another, and another. She works in a hush that isn't exactly peace, the kind of quiet that lets your thoughts talk without shouting. "You didn't understand," she murmurs, not sure whether she's speaking to the sky or the soil. But I couldn't leave him. Sweat blooms along her spine, even as the air cools. Sap perfumes her fingers with a green bitterness she's always loved. The white dog turns twice and lies down, sighing like an old story. Far away, a motorbike coughs, then fades. If I'm wrong, I'll repent. If I'm right, I'll stand. By late afternoon, the garden sings, soft and gold. Sunlight skims the leaves and makes a halo no one asked for. Footsteps on the path. She doesn't turn. Her body already knows. "Tieu." Uri's voice is a low warmth. He stops a little way off, as if approaching a skittish animal. His eyes map her mud on her knees, damp hair slicing her cheek, the tender, fierce way she cups a pumpkin. "Your mother?" "Left, with Lynn." The words come clean. "She asked me to choose, and you chose me." It isn't a question. It's a confession he can't bear to hear and can't afford not to. "I did." She meets his eyes and doesn't look away. If it costs her, so be it. Uri nods once, like a promise sealing itself. "I'm sorry." No rush to fix, no fast talk. He closes the distance and offers his hand, not to pull her, not to lead, just to share the weight that has no object. "I will set the boundaries. No more shouting at your threshold. I'll speak to my mother. I'll look into what you asked about Lynn cleanly, quietly. I want peace. For you. For us." "Peace," she echoes, tasting it. Hope and hurt tangle in her voice and refuse to separate. They stand there with the pumpkins as witnesses. Wind lifts the rice. The dog yawns like an old monk and gives up on pretending to be vigilant. The day exhales and tilts toward evening. Uri squeezes her fingers and tries for lightness. "Let's wash these. Green pumpkin tea for winter. You'll see it takes the ache out of tired bones." Her mouth curves, small and real. "I don't know if tea fixes this." "No," he says, "but it keeps us steady while we try." His phone buzzes. Once. Twice. He glances, and the muscles in his jaw say it matters. He silences it. It buzzes again, insistently, like a voice at a door that won't stop knocking. He pockets the phone, eyes returning to her. "I'm here," he says, choosing the words as carefully as she chose him. "I'm not leaving." Dusk gathers its loose threads. The first star shivers awake above the paddies. Somewhere beyond the trees, the problem that keeps calling sharpens its teeth. The night settles without asking permission. At the well, a single bulb swings from a wire like a restless moon, smearing pale light over water, buckets, and their joined shadows. The first pumpkin hits the rim with a hollow, musical thud. Uri rolls up his sleeves. Tu Tieu lowers the rope, listens to the pulley creak, and steadies the bucket as if holding a heartbeat. Cold? He asks. It wakes me up, she says, dipping the fruit, letting the water gloss its skin. Maybe that's what we need. They work without hurry. The rhythm lift, dunk, scrub, set braids their silence into something bearable. Crickets take turns with the frogs. The dog arranges itself as a small white comma by the steps. When the bulb draws a moth too close, its wings whisper against the glass and then move on, unburned, wiser. Uri brushes his thumb over a scratch on a pumpkin's side. Even the sweetest things get scars, he says, almost to himself. Maybe sweetness attracts them, she replies. His mouth tilts. Then we'll be careful with what we sweeten. The phone starts again, one insistence, then another. He doesn't move at first, but the third pulse carries a tension he recognizes too well. He frowns, checks the screen, and sighs. Go on, Tu Tieu says, reading the change in his shoulders. If it's work, he admits, then adds, and family, which lately is the same fight wearing different clothes. He steps away to answer. The low murmur of his voice drifts across the yard, roughening when he says his mother's name, softening when he says no shouting, flinting into steel when he repeats, the farm is her home, respect it or don't come. A pause. He listens, eyes on the dark tree line as if it might throw an answer back. I'll come in the morning, he says finally. We'll set boundaries. No more storms at her door. When he returns, his expression is measured, but the vein beating at his temple gives him away. You don't have to fix everything tonight, Tu Tieu says. I know. He reaches for the next pumpkin, but I have to start or the morning will be too late. They finish the washing. Together, they carry the basket to the kitchen, the bulb outside still swinging, the sky pressing closer, stitched with thin stars. Inside, the house smells like ginger and wet wood. Uri splits the first pumpkin with a careful, sure stroke. Thin slices, he says. They take the sugar better. And less sugar than usual, we need the tea to calm, not to smother. You talk like a doctor, she teases, finding the rhythm of the knife. Or an old aunt. Same training, he deadpans, and earns an actual laugh. Steam lifts as she blanches the slices. A bowl of rock sugar waits, patient as a proverb. Uri ties gauze into small squares for a spice bundle and drops star anise inside like tiny brown boats. My mother used to say, he offers, that the niche we choose decides the storms we meet. If we choose business, we meet greed. If we choose family, we meet pride. If we choose love, we meet all of it, she finishes, setting a colander to drain. But we also meet ourselves. He watches her profile, the stubborn gentleness that always undoes him. Tomorrow I'll talk to her, he says, calmly, firmly. I'll tell her what our line is and what happens if she crosses it. No raised voices. We'll keep ourselves steady. I'll also check what you asked about Lynn quietly, cleanly. No theater. Thank you. She doesn't look up, but her shoulders settle, just enough to be seen. They layer pumpkin, sugar, and spice into the pot. The first slow boil is a soft conversation hiss, hush, breathe. Uri leans against the doorframe, pretending not to be tired. Tu Tieu skims foam with the patience of someone who has learned that clarity takes time. The white dog arranges itself near her heel, using her ankle as a wall to sleep against. A motorbike mutters past the gate and continues down the lane. The world narrows to the room, the glow, the pot, the rhythm of their breaths. For a moment, the choice made this afternoon doesn't feel like a fracture. It feels like a root, a soft knock. They freeze, not the hard freeze of fear, the hush of a house listening to its own door. Uri's eyes ask, "Do you want me to?" She nods toward the porch. He opens the door at night, careful, and finds no one, just a plastic bag on the step. Beating rain. He bends, brings it inside. Inside the bag, a folded scarf, worn thin where a mother's hand would rub it absently. A small container of ginger soup still warm. A note on ruled paper. Careful, even strokes. Eat while it's hot. The scarf smells like lemongrass and laundry sun. Tu Tieu stares. The first feeling isn't relief. It's a wave of ache so clean, it almost tastes sweet. She touches the scarf with 2 fingers, like it might vanish. Then she turns the note over. There's nothing on the back. There doesn't have to be. She came back, Uri says softly, even if she couldn't stay. She didn't knock, Tu Tieu whispers. She knocked exactly enough, he answers. They don't talk for a while. They drink the ginger soup from small bowls. It isn't an apology, and it isn't an apology. It is hot. It's care carried to a threshold and left without a face attached, in case that makes it easier to take. When the jam reaches its glassy amber stage, they pour it into jars. The lids ping as they seal, one sharp note at a time. Uri labels them with a date and a single word: steady. He washes the pot, sleeves damp, hair falling out of place, and looks like the life he's been trying to choose instead of the one that keeps choosing him. In the morning, he says again, "I'll go." "I'll be here," she answers, tying her mother's scarf around her throat, like a promise she isn't ready to speak aloud. They step onto the porch. The bulb has calmed its swing. Fog hangs low over the paddies, turning the world into a soft map of itself. From somewhere behind the trees, a temple bell counts the hour and keeps counting, as if trying to give them more time than the day allows. "Are we strong enough?" she asks the dark, not accusing, not pleading. Just a woman turning a question into air to see if it breathes. Uri slips his hand into hers. "We weren't this morning," he says. "We are more now. Tomorrow." He pauses, then chooses the truth. Tomorrow will have to be. They stand like that until their fingers learn it by heart. Inside, the jars cool. On the table, the note waits, brave in its smallness. Out beyond the gate, the road turns toward 2 houses that will not be the same in the light. Between them, a farm. Between the farm, a choice. Between the choice, 2 people holding the line they drew together, hoping that love not only heals the wound, but teaches the hands that made it how to touch without breaking anything again. Lift the basket together and start toward the well.
Sau một cuộc đối đầu dữ dội, mẹ của Tử Tiêu đưa ra tối hậu thư gia đình hay Uri. Tuy bị lung lay nhưng kiên quyết, Tử Tiêu chọn Uri trang trại, sau đó làm việc trên luống bí ngô để ổn định trái tim mình. Uri tìm thấy cô và lúc chàng vàng anh hứa sẽ giữ ranh giới bình tĩnh với mẹ và lặng lẽ kiểm tra Linh. Họ lửa bí ngô dưới ánh trăng biến thói quen thành nơi trú ẩn và đun sôi trà mùa đông giúp họ ổn định trong khi cố gắng. Sau đó một chiếc túi xuất hiện, một chiếc khăn quàng cổ xúc trừ và mẩu giấy không lời để lại cánh cửa. Bằng sự dịu dàng và quyết tâm, cặp đôi chuẩn bị cho buổi sáng nơi sự thật phải được đối đầu. Ranh giới được vẽ lại, tin tưởng rằng tình yêu có thể bắt đầu chữa lành những gì lòng kiêu hãnh đã xé nát. Những chiếc nọ niêm phong ổn định, một chiếc chuông chùa điểm nhẹ cuốn trong một chiếc khăn quàng cổ. Tử Tiêu hỏi chúng ta đủ mạnh mẽ chưa? Uri trả lời tối nay ngày mai sẽ tiếp tục, chúng ta phải thật là mạnh mẽ. Ok.